Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. Joining me from the Fateless team, going to be none other than Sham and Saphira, Paul. Good to see you all today. And also the special guest is going to be CHISGULE, and we're going to be talking about gameplay and how much it does or doesn't matter within games, maybe different mistakes we've seen from other games and all that type of stuff. But how you doing today, CHISGULE? Good to see you again.
Hey, doing great. Really happy to be here. I think we hung out about 6 months ago on the podcast, but for those folks I'm meeting for the first time, I've got a YouTube channel where I play city building war games, and it's specifically mobile games that I'm playing. So I'm really hyped to talk about this topic of, does gameplay actually matter, especially for mobile? Because I think the answer might actually be really surprising. And Sham, the last time we hung out, I think was actually in Germany at Gamescom.
Germany with the Germans.
We were up until like, I want to say 2 or 3 a.m. talking about games. So
this
it was a good time.
This happens a lot in the Fateless team. Remember, Sham, you and I got stuck in a hotel lobby reviewing someone's game until like 2 in the morning on his laptop.
Forever. We were just like, but you know what? This is the thing about the game industry, man. I mean, like, we just are so passionate about it. We always want to, like, we're fine, man. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. All hours. I mean, I think Saf, might be a vampire, so he's he's at all hours willing to discuss. But Chiz, man, what is, hold on, so you're telling me you think, well, you're questioning, I guess, where we're at with whether or not gameplay matters. I mean, that's a hot take. I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm going to make the argument that gameplay potentially doesn't even matter at all. And so I want to give you an example. I've been thinking about this so much. Between a couple different games in the genre I sort of play.
Okay.
In city building war games, we've talked about this in the past. It's kind of like a no-limit poker table where you build up troops and your city, and like you do these battles where you permanently lose the things that you have accumulated in your collection, whether it's the troops, the resources, the speed ups, and things you've spent to actually obtain those troops, and so on. So these are super intense community games. And I've realized as I look at them that the gameplay really ranges. But I would have thought that the better the gameplay gets, the more popular the game would potentially be. But I'm observing almost in some ways the opposite with some of the games that I'm playing. And so in this genre, on one end of the spectrum, the gameplay is so simple that you simply say, go send my army there. It walks over. You get a report when it arrives of how many hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of troops you've lost, literally.
How
and
fun.
Then it comes home and that's it. Okay. And those games are very popular. We're talking like top 10 strategy games right now if you look in the App Store. Okay. On the other side of things, one of the games I have a sponsored relationship with and I've been enjoying for a long time is this game Call of Dragons, which is not ranked as highly right now, but has very sophisticated gameplay where like you actually move your troops around in real time. Each troop type performs in a different way. There's elevation in the terrain. There's flying units and ground units and these giant behemoths you summon to go and fight on your behalf. And like the gameplay is way more sophisticated, but it's not ranked as highly, which is like really perplexing to me because it's, one of my favorite games. I play it every day. So I started to ask this question. Gents, does gameplay actually matter at all?
Well, it depends what you mean by gameplay. And I was asked this question before we hit record. What do you mean by gameplay? Do we mean mechanics? Do we mean like experience? And what I mean by experience is like, when you're playing a Street Fighter game, like the fight combat animations is kind of core to whether you think it's a good game or a bad game, right? So the experience of me playing is what you could call gameplay. It's a very broad topic. So what do you mean specifically? Do you mean the game systems and mechanics don't really matter beyond the basics, or do you mean like the battle, the animations, the graphics? Where are you thinking?
I'm thinking the actions you take to actually play the game. Like for example, I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and the abilities in that game, you just like, for the most part, you'd say like, hey, use this skill and your thing will be targeted. It would use the ability on that target, which is, I would argue, less sophisticated than, for example, shoot, I can't think of the name of the Amazon game that I played very briefly, and it kind of tanked.
Lost Ark or New World?
New Worlds?
New World,
New
where
World.
you
Yeah.
actually had to target. Everything you did was targeted, right? I would argue that's more sophisticated gameplay. So when I'm talking about gameplay, I'm talking about the things you need to do to actually make your armies or your character or whatever it is you're controlling do what you want it to do. So a game that has like very low gameplay would be, you know, as an example, where you just like send your army, it marches, you get the report. Like all you did was say send army, right? That's the whole gameplay. That's it. To at the very steep end of gameplay, you know, like a first person shooter where like you have to actually land your headshots to score a headshot.
Yeah. So to me, like, I think actually the genre is super, super important, right? So mobile games typically, I've always felt like this for like MMORPGs and like action combat games. There's like a couple of years ago, and it probably still is happening, there seems to be like a drive that, hey, you're going to be able to play like MMORPGs or like the Dota style games on phone. And I always felt like those things just don't really work, like especially when we have like console games that try to become, or PC game that tries to become a console game, and then you just like, I'm a PC gamer, and I feel like when it comes to that
Wild
kind of
Rift's pretty
debate,
good. Wild Rift's pretty good. Shout out to.
but you know what I mean? They actually didn't just take League of Legends and make it
It's its
Wild
own
Rift.
thing. Yeah.
It's its own game with its own characters, its own uses. So they actually had to adapt it. But you see what I actually don't think like you will ever find that Wild Rift will be more successful than League of Legends, because when you're playing a mobile game, I don't really think you want the level of complexity that you're essentially saying that you see in a lot of these games. I don't think players necessarily care too much about, oh, cool, I can like physically make my character do something in a specific way with specific targeting. It's like, I just want to be able to do my action on a mobile scennario.
Ooh,
So I kind of get what you're saying.
such a strong opinion here. I have such a strong opinion here. So, but I'm interested to hear what Brad thinks. What's your gut on this one?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to whether you can appeal to the masses or a niche. You know, like me coming from a StarCraft background, StarCraft is just never, ever, ever going to be as popular as something like Fortnite. It's way easier to jump in and just run around and shoot stuff than it is to jump in, pick a race, learn a build, and learn how to execute it instead of just running around shooting stuff and then, oh, I lost next match. So it just depends on how you can appeal to the masses or not. And what you're describing is the simpler the game is, the more it can appeal to the masses, the more it can appeal to more casual gamers and a larger player base, as opposed to some of the more hardcore gamers that want to get in and learn deep dive mechanics.
But I would say,
let's break it down 1 second, because I think your original question, Paul, was so crucial, and I think that we needed to define what we're talking about here when we say what are we talking about when we say gameplay, because I would argue that 100% there is no question that gameplay matters, but and here's what I'm going to say. The reason for that is because not every game's gameplay is what you're describing. So you're describing that the gameplay of that game is press button, move troops, right? I would argue that that's not what people are playing the game for. People are playing the game for the everything else, for the before, for everything that's involved before, the meta game, the all the other things that are around it.
the strategy is what they
So
play
like
for.
if you look at our game, if you look at Godforge, right? The battle is not going to be as complex and as intricate as like an ARPG, let's say, where you're moving around, you can choose when you're doing stuff, and it's timing and it's frame data. But you spend a shit ton of time figuring out how to optimize your builds, how to organize your team, when to level these things, organizing your community or whatever. So like, I mean, gameplay is everything. Gaming, man, it's gaming. Of course it matters.
I think you're making the case for the exact opposite.
Okay. So pitch me.
So
I'm
I would
interested.
differentiate gameplay from game knowledge, where gameplay is how do I get the things in this game that I'm playing to sort of like do what I want, and like the skill of making that happen, versus game knowledge. What are the things I need to know about this game in order to make better decisions? And to give a really extreme example, let's get a look at chess.
I was going to use the exact example. Okay, perfect. So let's
What's
hear
the
your take on
gameplay
chess.
of chess, brother? it's picking up a piece and putting it in a different place. Like, not much gameplay. If I'm rating that on a 1 to 10, where 1 is the lowest, 10 is the highest, I'm giving it a 1. It's the most simple gameplay imaginable. Now, we're talking about game knowledge. I'd give it a 10. Right? Game knowledge is the game.
That's the thing. That is the game. Like, it's like, you can't call chess a game. Chess is not a game of move pieces wherever you want, right? Chess is a game of move pieces and you need to take the other king, right? That's the game.
Matters more than what you can do, because the threshold is so low for what you can do. That's not even like a aspect of the skill of playing the game, really. It's all about what you know.
Yeah. Oh, so I think you're differentiating skill games versus strategy games in a sense, right? I mean, because it's like, yeah. I mean, this is almost like a philosophical question in some ways, right?
I get what he's saying, because he's basically saying the difference between the actual playing versus the knowledge of playing, which like that line is drawn differently. Like, if you're playing American football, you can be as knowledgeable as you want, but during the gameplay, if someone's 100 pounds heavier than you and they hit you in the mouth, like, it's game over. Your knowledge doesn't matter. Whereas in some games like chess, how good you can move the pieces doesn't mean anything. It's all about your knowledge.
Style. You're like, if you can like flip the piece up and it lands perfectly, it's like, cool story, bro, but you're still checkmated here.
So the question really becomes then, more specifically to the mobile gaming sphere, are we actually finding, when it comes to hero collector strategy games, resource management, these types of games, actually fundamentally players care more about the knowledge aspect of the gameplay than they care about the gameplay features themselves? For example, going back to what Sham was saying there in terms of like, you know, when we're in Godforge and in Raid and in all these other games, 90% of my gameplay that I care about is actually the collecting and the building of the hero, right? Hero collectors, the whole point of it is to collect the hero.
The economy in
it
a
is
lot of ways.
Effectively the game. Now, if you introduce 7 steps of things that I need, for example, we've seen games that add cutscene animations, and the first thing that players ever do when they see a cutscene is, oh, that's cool, disable. Then they'll do things like, okay, there's no ×3 animation. Why is it taking me so? They want to know the in and the out. And if you introduce lots of gameplay mechanics that talk about the middle bit, what are we seeing a trend that players go, there's too much middle, there's not enough of start and end.
But
I don't like this
game. You still
game.
need that buy-in. This is the thing. So my argument would be, and I agree, I think that there is movement towards kind of what you're saying. Like, I mean, but no one really wants to play a game where you just say, like, you set up your troops and you go auto win. That eventually gets super boring. Well, it
you
might
can't
be
play the
okay
game
for
like a
little
spreadsheet. This is
Depends
the thing.
on what you're winning and depends on what's at stake. But and it depends on what it took to get there, right? Because I think that the charm, the attraction of Raid Shadow Legends, and I think ultimately like Godforge as well, is going to be in the quality of the collection experience in part, and the quality of all those things that lead up to that moment where you put your team on auto. Because I would argue putting a team on auto is like a low gameplay threshold.
Well, but putting them on auto, that's one thing, and seeing the results of what happened, but what I'm saying is it wouldn't, imagine you have 1,000 energy in a day. I'm just going to simplify it. Okay. And it costs 100, or yeah, it costs 10 energy to go into a battle. Imagine you could just spend all your energy in 1 minute, right? You just spam 100 times, and then there's nothing else left to do in the game. Are you going to continue to play that game, even if everything on the other end is really exciting? I got a big bunch of gear. I need to sort through it. I need to equip my gear. I need to level my heroes because I've gotten a bunch of stuff. Somehow I've organized it so it's super fun. I don't think so. I think that becomes spreadsheet the game. Like there is this level, right? There is this level of buy-in that players need. Like, maybe they don't care about the lore, but they care that the characters look cool to them. Maybe they don't care about the cutscenes all the time, but they want to be like, man, that animation was sweet. That one time I paid attention to it. You know, like there's like a threshold.
A lot of these games have become spreadsheet the game. I'm serious. Haven't you played with someone who makes the spreadsheet to optimize the math? Haven't you been the guy that makes the spreadsheet for yourself?
Right?
You know you've done it.
We're here.
We all
But I
playing
will
Spreadsheet
say,
the game.
That's us. Yeah, yeah,
Here,
yeah.
here is the thing, though, right? This is a gamer versus game audience argument as well. The gamer, Brad will tell you this, because obviously StarCraft, if you're a professional StarCraft or have ever done any sort of profession, you will literally spend hours upon hours analyzing different metrics, different calculations, different efficiency points. That's the game, right? That's a strategy game. But your average StarCraft player is not going to do that. Your average raid player is not going to sit there and work out the 0.5 turn meter cycle to get my team into this. That doesn't mean the game shouldn't have it, but if you abdicate the game's gameplay, the actual core middle bit, and then all a player gets is a spreadsheet, you get like I played a similar game you've probably heard about, CHISGULE, which is the Warcraft one, with the city builder Warcraft game, and I played it for a good week. There's a not World of Warcraft, Warhammer. Wrong one.
Warhammer. Okay, gotcha.
Warhammer.
Too many
okay.
wars.
Yeah.
The Warhammer.
I was like, wait,
city builder one.
Warcraft build a city
like,
builder?
wait,
I was
what?
like,
Hold on.
hey, yo,
Yeah,
hold
yeah.
up.
I
A
basically went through a
Warhammer
bit of
city
a,
builder?
there's a Warhammer, like the old school mobile games where you basically have a city, you go and invade other people's and you upgrade it. I played like the Lord of the Rings one, and I played the Warhammer one because I was doing a bit of market research for various different features and different things. And I quickly found Warhammer to be just, I'm logging in and I'm just getting bonus after bonus and pressing buttons and bonus and pressing buttons. And you end up in a game where the game is running me. I'm not actually playing any game now. I'm just basically managing resources. And that will appeal to a subset of players. The question is, if you actually took that game and gave it to a wider audience, how much of that wider audience is going to go, well, I had fun for like an hour, and now it's just like a notification spam bot. And there is a balance. I absolutely think like overfilling the middle bit of the sandwich with like lots of intricacies like cutscenes and visual effects and over animation and all this when you just want to get the thing done is bad. But at the same time, if there was no battle and there was no animations and there was no cool graphics, there was no explosion, there was no story, then you end up in a situation that, what is your game? Like, is it just a spreadsheet?
It's a bit like a Michael Bay movie versus giving someone a script and just being like, read this. You know what I mean?
I think
because you're gonna get a lot of the stuff, and maybe you don't. Maybe you can imagine it yourself, and you're digging the script. But the Michael Bay movie, I'm not saying a Michael Bay movie is great, but I'm just saying it has a bunch of stuff in it, and people sometimes just want to go to a movie to see a bunch of stuff. And maybe what you're arguing is that in the mobile market, people don't mind having script plus, one guy kind of talking or something. I don't know.
I think Chosen nailed this, which is at the very start, he's like, the simpler the gameplay is, the more accessible it is to wider audiences. And if you think about chess, like who in the world, like almost everybody has played chess, and I don't even actively play chess, right? But
I've watched
I can point out who the grandmasters are and understand why it's such a big deal to be a grandmaster, right? So I think that actually gameplay, I would have said 10 years ago, is like the single most important part of a game. And now I would point to it and say, it's actually probably the least important thing to me, potentially. Which is
what is the
weird.
most, well, hold on. So maybe this is the better question now. What is the most important part then?
I can tell you 3 things that I think are critical. Okay. Collection, absolutely critical for me. Right.
Okay.
I mean, I played Pokemon Go and I was collecting little pets. Like, what are we talking about? Like,
So
it's just a collection game. What's the gameplay of Pokemon Go?
Collection.
You swirl your stupid finger around in a circle and the little ball goes out there and you catch a Pokemon, right? Like, what are we even talking about? The gameplay
but you're walking
was
around.
Get off your ass and walk around to find the Pokemon. Let's not talk about the late night Pokemon that I went to catch in shady places. We just are not going to talk about that, okay?
Go to Skid Row.
You saw things you never want to see again.
But the gameplay was like, get off your ass and twist your little finger around, right? And like, that was it. Where was I even going with that? Oh yeah, collection in games I think matters a lot. I mean, people used to collect stamps. I'm not knocking it, right? I'm not going to yuck your yum, but like people collect coins, people collect stamps, people love collecting.
Achievements.
So I think even
Cards,
if there isn't
whatever.
really a game, even if there's no gameplay at all, you give something compelling to collect and people will collect it.
So growth, because collection, I think you can generalize. You're looking for progression, maybe growth, progression, something like that.
Well, I would say building a collection does give me a feeling of purpose and growth.
Specifically, check.
There's a
marking.
third thing as well, which is completion, right? Because we talk about this a lot in the MMO genre. Like people will do like the most craziest long-term endurance thing if they can finish
If there's a
something.
complete, yeah.
If there's a completionist, like this is my problem with any sort of MMO game that I can't really commit to, because I will spend the 4 hours killing the common champion because I need like 500 of them
There's an
so that I
achievement.
can check my box and say
Yeah.
I've completed that and I've completed that and I've completed that. I used to have spreadsheets in Lord of the Rings Online and literally every single thing that hidden thing that I haven't done, so I can say, okay, I've done it. So there's like that two angle of I'm growing while I'm playing, but I'm also growing to an end goal. And that end goal is going to drive me. Because there's two mentalities. People just want to get new stuff, which is one mentality, and then you have that other mentality of people want to get it all done, finish it all off, sign the box at the end.
And are you saying the economy of completion or the
both, actually?
The layers of completion okay, so you're saying essentially the gameplay of complete. This is what I'm kind of getting at, by the way. This is my argument here, but keep going. So okay.
Yeah, so I think there's sort of like two ideas there. One is collection, and the sort of double click on collection is achievements related to things you have potentially collected, or even that you can collect achievements.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Associated with things you have done.
Yep.
And maybe there's really only just two things. I said three, but I think it might just be two for me. Collection is a big one, and then community is a huge one. Like, what am I collecting? And who am I doing it with? Or also, who appreciates and values beyond me that I have collected these things?
Yeah. No, I think community in gaming, it isn't important for everyone, but it is crucial for like a lot of people, for almost most people, I would say. Like, again, it's not like community like necessarily for everyone where I'm going to be chatting with these people. We're going to hop in like a call. It's just like you said, it's someone to appreciate my achievement, to appreciate that I did something that is difficult and that took me work. But this is why earlier on I said, I would argue that what you're describing is gameplay. Like this is the game. Like the thing that you're describing is the game.
I think you guys are defining it a little bit differently. I think correct me if I'm wrong, CHISGULE. I think they're missing the original point. Like in StarCraft, you can study in spreadsheet all you want, but when you show up to the gameplay, you're gonna get bodied if you don't have the APM and the accuracy to execute it. And I think that's what he means. I think because that doesn't exist in some games. Like some games, just spreadsheeting is good enough. But there's some games where like the gameplay part of it is way more important than whatever you spreadsheet.
But so then are we saying that skill that I don't think that's what you're saying. I don't think that's actually what you're saying. I don't think that you're and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but skill gaming, which is what you're talking about, right? Skill gaming versus like whatever the spectrum up to skill, up to skill, right? The strategy of the way that you build things, the before thought, right?
This is why I'm differentiating gameplay and game knowledge, right? Like chess takes incredible game knowledge. We wouldn't say you'd never say chess doesn't take skill, right? But if we try to extract, well, what is skill in gaming and the different ways that's represented, one piece of it is what you know, and the other piece is what you can do with what you know, right? And like your ability to actually execute it. And I think to Chosen's point, like APM is a great example where like I'll never be beyond a certain level at StarCraft, no matter how much I know, because APM is a constraint. I'll never be that good at FPSs because I'm not going to hit the headshots, you know? It's just, that ain't me. I played plenty.
But is that what you were saying?
Kid,
that doesn't matter in gaming? Because I mean, I would argue that maybe in the genre you're talking about, sure, yeah, that makes sense. Like no one cares about making skill shots in these game modes. I don't think that's what you were saying.
I think what I'm saying is that you can make an incredible game that does not require particularly sophisticated gameplay at all. In fact, the gameplay can be incredibly simple if the other pieces of the puzzle are good enough. And I would even argue that,
I'm with you there.
Like I played a lot of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I, played a lot of Raid Shadow Legends. I'm hyped about Godforge. And like, I think that whole genre, and I mean, I haven't played it in a while, but I don't think there's that much emphasis on gameplay, really,
on Twitch
compared to all the other stuff. I would say all the other things matter so much more. Like, if you nail the collection, the gameplay itself can be so simple that I'm very content just pushing auto, and I will be extremely happy watching what happens. If
I
all
think
the
to
other
me,
pieces of the puzzle
Yeah.
are really well done. Do
Yeah.
you see what I mean?
I think what you're
100%.
describing
I'm with you,
is
actually.
effectively you got two ways to look at it. Some games will be much more about what you know, and some games will be much more about how good you are at it. And I think the more strategy that's required, the less skill should be involved. And then the more skill that's required, the less knowledge should be involved. So what I mean by that is what you don't, the main failings of StarCraft, for example, the reason why it will never appeal to a mass market audience beyond these days is you need too much knowledge to play the game.
Requires
and
it
then
all,
once you've learned all that, you still need to be super good at it with what Brad was saying in terms of like the APM, which means that for the average player, they're never going to be able to get into it because it's too much investment and then too much requirement. And I feel like what Fortnite have done extremely well is you don't really need any knowledge. You go in, you pick up a weapon, and you start popping people's heads, right? That is the gameplay. Yes, there are levels of skill, like being able to target and aim and knowing when to get a different weapon. But that's not really knowledge. That's more like experience.
Well, you can just
and,
hide for a while too, like,
right.
depending on what
But
you're
imagine
doing.
you were playing Fortnite and you had to
I don't
basically
wanna-
know
I
chess
don't want to
level
undersell
knowledge.
the significance of like building in Fortnite, right? Like, there are some really sophisticated structures you can go and build that I look at people doing that. I'm like, holy cow. And a
You're
piece
like-
of that is like memorizing the mechanics of the exact sequence of buttons you push to build that structure, but
that's
also
skill.
knowing like
That's
what
not
to build and
knowledge.
when. Yeah,
That's not
skill.
That's
Yeah.
skill. So what I mean by skill is like when you watch players who are League of Legends players and they know how to like basically play the game where they can cut animation or like cut skill animations to basically optimize how quickly they can do combos. That's not really knowledge. You don't really need to know that that's a possibility. That's more like I played the
It's
game.
college. You need both.
But what
Like-
I'm saying is
like,
chess, for example, if you want to become a grandmaster, you need to research and train and learn, right? You can't just go in and move a few things. Whereas I feel like with a lot of these skill-based games, you don't necessarily need to know like move sequences beyond what you
Wow, hold on.
you
hold
know
on.
what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say is that the
I do see
initial
what you're saying. I do
investment,
see what you're saying.
if you have basically a game that has like super high knowledge requirements and super skill knowledge, you're going to fail because I feel like you're going to attract such a small subset of people's interests. Whereas if you have high knowledge, what I think CHISGULE is basically saying is the gameplay skill aspect is irrelevant if a lot of it is based on like, well, I need to know this is the way that these things work in these sequences. And when I press go, that's what happens, right? The gameplay now is not a live action skill based. It's actually, I've implemented my knowledge. I've applied the knowledge. I don't care about what's happening. I just want that knowledge to work. Therefore, the middle sandwich bit now is a case of a sequence of automated actions that the player's kind of like, I don't really care. Just give me the result. I want the report. I want the report card, the item, the drop rate. In Raid, for example, I'm doing 60 runs. I'm not watching that fight. I'm not experiencing that fight. I'm not playing the fight. I'm not manually selecting skills. I can't wait to get on auto, press it on times to minimize it, and just let it finish.
See you later.
That is unfortunate. It sounds like really
Well-
bad because obviously we don't want that to be an experience of gameplay, but that's what people
No, but it
want.
could be fine. Like in Raid, like hasn't everybody at some point, like you certainly have the simulation tickets, the auto tickets, right? But like at some point people even advise. I remember when I was looking at like how to level up my gameplay or whatever, it was like, yeah, you just like get an auto clicker. or
Auto clicker,
something to
baby.
Do it for you. Like,
Auto
so
clicker.
you're not playing even, right? Like so
I mean, in Raid, they literally have on they've created at one point a live arena platinum reset where it physically like picks targets for them, automatically selects it, and avoids certain clans. It's like, what's the point? Where's your excitement going? You're trying to finish a plan. You're not even playing.
That is the fun for I mean, and I'm with this, by the way. I love that shit. Like I love people because you do all this work, you do all this prep, you strategize, you think about this, you build you literally build a program to do something for you, and then you get to just sit back, watch it happen, or not watch it, right? Come back to the
But
results.
Here's
That's
what
sweet.
CHISGULE is saying, I guess, is a lot of the work to get that situation where you're pressing auto would be hours of work, right? These guys, certainly at the high end of Platinum Arena, sitting there, they're grinding masteries, they're grinding gear, they're optimizing the gear, they're upgrading the gear, they're going into Sand Devil, they're reconfiguring it, they're trying out different builds, they're practicing, they're testing. Probably hours and hours of work so that they get the guaranteed outcome. And then once they get the guaranteed outcome, they don't actually care about seeing that outcome happen in gameplay. They're just like, give me the report card. Give me my number 1 position in Platinum Arena. I don't really care anymore. I've done my work. I'm enjoying the work less than the actual gameplay, which is fighting.
But I guess my question would be, and maybe you guys can answer this, is if Raid, let's just look at Raid, for example, this exact example. If Raid had Final Fantasy VII open world graphics, right? So remember the block hands and the
we're talking Final Fantasy VII vibes?
Final Fantasy VII.
OG one. Not
Minecraft
rework.
graphics. Minecraft.
There you go. Let's make it even simpler. Minecraft graphics. Okay. All right. Would you start playing that game?
Well, would I be interested from an advert? No, right? Because that's why
Paul
we
was
see
just
all the
streaming
adverts.
Minecraft 4 days ago.
To be fair, I was trying to build the Mines of Moria. But
Okay.
in a
I'm
social
just saying
setting,
those graphics. I'm saying those graphics.
no, of course not. Because but this is the enigma of players, right? Players want
is
to
what
be
I mean.
blown away by, AAA graphics, combat animation. That's the hook.
Vampire
Yeah.
Survivors was one of the biggest darlings of 2023. I mean,
Yeah, of course you do. Like,
So I'm gonna go on a limb and say graphics don't matter all that much for a whole lot of games. Take
yeah,
a
I
look
don't
at
think
chess.
they do.
Take a look at chess, boys.
Wow.
Like there are people streaming on Twitch right now with the most flat-looking chessboard you have ever seen. And I remember as a kid, okay, my
But that's
dad
because
was
it's
trying
like
to get.
soccer. It's almost like watching soccer because I can easily relate to it. Like I've run and played soccer and it's super simple, but I can appreciate the skill. It's almost like at a sport level in a sense. There's no graphics needed because I can relate to it so close. You know what I mean? Like there's no graphics in soccer. It's just people running around. But the reason people watch it is because they can appreciate. Holy shit! I've played that game, and I couldn't do. There's no way I could do that. Not everybody wants to watch that, right? But the people that do, that's why they're watching.
Yeah,
it's kind of
but
an appreciation.
If I pull up the top played games right now on Steam, a lot of them are trash graphics. Stardew Valley, Counter-Strike, Dota 2, like Apex Legends, Rust,
but
the majority
yeah.
of them are.
Hold on. The ones you just
Apex
listed. The ones you just
Legends.
listed.
Whoa.
These are polished games. This is
Yeah,
not.
no, I mean, very.
You're not talking
old.
about. You're not talking about. Oh yeah, it was, like but you're right. Minecraft is one of the most played games in the world.
Yeah, no,
right? 100%.
I just mean old. The old technology, old capabilities. It's not like cutting edge ray tracing, crazy graphic stuff going on. It's just old technology, but a game that's executed well.
So
I
if
will
the
say, though,
graphics don't matter and the gameplay, as I've sort of defined it anyways, depending on the genre, doesn't matter potentially, then that puts a lot of emphasis on the other stuff. If you get the other stuff right in your game design, you've got a banger, right?
Because what you're basically saying is, what you're saying is, game design and community are the only thing that matters. That's what you're saying in a sense.
I think I am.
well, specifically game systems more matter.
Yeah.
That's
Design
what
of
I
the
was saying at
system,
the start of this
whatever we want
podcast.
to say, but you get the idea.
The start of this episode is why I was clarifying what we mean by gameplay, because a system in a game is still gameplay, right? It is still a mechanism in which I'm playing the game.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, you could
It's-
totally make the argument that like the gameplay of, Raid and Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes and is like setting everything up, right? But like you're also just kind of plugging the numbers into the spreadsheet.
but that's
Before you
gameplay.
hit
What I'm saying is
go.
you're
But
playing
But
the
you
game.
still
I'm
want that.
serious.
There's
It's just
still
got
part of me
graphics.
that wants
It's just
that.
a visual representation of the spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Well, yeah, we know that for sure because it's just the back end. There's some numbers and there's a bunch of numbers and in the
I mean,
sheet.
if we want to go super philosophical, the entire world is built on a construct of numbers.
Oh boy.
We're
Measurements.
going too far. We're going too far. Paul.
Measurements. I mean, the world is
We're-
numbers,
we're
right? That's
gonna
why
rein
math
it
is
in.
most important. But you know what I'm saying? It's like if you boil everything down to a numerical, well, yes, the world is built on numericals. The economy is built on the balance of numbers. The geometry of the mountain is built on whether or not it can support it. So you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, well, what are we talking about gameplay? Well, if you don't have good game systems, the game's trash. Now, you could absolutely say, if we're going to put like, okay, what is a game? A game is combat, so like, action. The game is graphics. The game is systems. The game is economy. You have these pillars that construct a game. Your argument is essentially the system is far more important than how it looks and feels.
Well, because
That's a fair
big
argument.
part of it, and I agree, but a big part of any game, any activity, is the reward and incentive structure, right? And the reward you're looking for. This is what you've said. The reward you're looking for is, in a sense, or the incentive structure is collection. Reward is the collecting, and the incentive structure is the act of collecting, right? So like it, but that's true for any of these things. The thing I think the argument that you're making is actually very interesting, that there is a lower limit, and this is what I think a lot of like indie developers are trying to tap into. There's a lower limit of what's required graphically in order for people to capture people's interest in the incentive and reward system, right? So if I'm very interested in collecting, and I don't and you have banger design and game and well, let's not call it gameplay, game knowledge systems, we'll call it
Game knowledge.
game knowledge
Well-
systems, then you're good.
Well, yeah, you want an example would be Among Us.
Yeah.
Game knowledge matters. Like the gameplay is pretty simple, right? Like you walk your character around. Most people can figure out how to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like the gameplay itself is pretty simple, but the fun of it is what you need to know. It's not even a collection game at all, although they sure did add that in with a bunch of cosmetics you can go collect, right? Like,
Well,
so
the
there is a
achievement
collection
of-
element, but like, I don't know, it's been forever since I played Among Us, but like that's not really the emphasis on that game.
I heard
That's more of
Steph
a
just
game
got
focused
stabbed
on game
stabbed
knowledge.
in that
Like,
recently.
yeah, do you know how to read other people? And like that's like the skill you need there, which is really accessible, which is a part of what makes that so fun.
Yeah,
Right?
well, exactly. Because it's like you said, it's really just about trying to read, and you might not be. A lot of it you could just guess too, right? So I don't know. I mean, the thing that I am held up on, though, as going back to that question I just asked, is I do think that because it's so accessible now to get to kind of a lower limit of fidelity,
Mhm.
that people are shifting away from accepting like absolutely low, almost nothing graphics. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
like, and I'm not even saying like the indie projects like pixel art or something. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the baseline requirement for a game. We'll talk about our genre, right? A squad RPG or a hero collector RPG. You can't come onto the market again with like, if we were to say like, all right, guys, we have the best gameplay. We've optimized every single system. We have everything that you've ever wanted for like the way you can build up your characters and have a million achievements. Oh, but it looks like Minecraft. I think we probably wouldn't get that many players. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like maybe not.
I do think the graphics are really important in drawing someone in to try a game, potentially. It all
I
depends
also
on how
think first
people find your game or how you expect them to
Yeah.
find your game.
I feel like if you have Minecraft style graphics, you're not going to be able to find a very easy marketing route to promote your game unless you're an established developer or you have an established IP. Like, we all love the Lego Middle Earth games and the Lego Batman games because it's Lego, right?
It's
They can
stylized
afford
in
to
a
get
sense,
away
right?
with not so cool character modeling. But if you can't, like, you see it all the time with Watcher Realms. Like a lot of Watcher Realms early marketing push and player acquisition is based on they can put these very exotic looking creative characters with cinematic cutscene entrances and people go, this looks amazing. They haven't actually figured out whether the game is good because then you can't sell someone on a spreadsheet. You simply can't, right? It's only going to appeal to people like me who love the art of min-maxing, who are absolute completionists, love finding the 1%. The average player in today's market in mobile gaming just doesn't want to play and think like that. They just want to go in. It looks cool. I beat this boss. Great. And I could tell you from personal experience, speaking to many different people in our community on raid side, they don't want to hunt the answer anymore. They just want people to get them to the answer, right? We see a lot of this mentality towards,
Tell me what to do.
just tell me what to do. I
Yeah.
don't need to know how it works. I just want to beat it. And that's a difficult thing to then balance because if you have deep game systems and lots of different things that, appeal to us as full gamers that really love the intricacies of it, great. You'll have probably like 10% of the market share. If you want to make your game profitable, what about the 90% of players that don't think like that? And you then don't have graphics to basically pull them in. And I think that's you see it a lot with newer games. It's like, oh, well, is the graphics up to raid level? Or the graphics in this new game is better than raid. They are judging it based on these initial impressions.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'll point back to the guys playing chess on Twitch right now. Like, it's not crazy graphics that are pulling people into that. But chess has its own reputation and storied history. So it's like maybe not a fair comparison for like we're making a new game trying to.
Yeah, chess wasn't released in
break into a market.
2024.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's like you try to go find like a streamer playing the Japanese version of chess or the Chinese board games, or do you have an audience of Risk? Do you see what I mean? It's like
Sure.
chess being like, it's always like, we see this with MMORPGs. World of Warcraft will always have an audience because it was the origin, the foundation of the big blow. It's just like Fortnite now for probably the sort of battle royale genre.
Yeah.
Like, we did have other ones before it, but because Fortnite was the one that became, you'll always have like new battle royales that come into the scene, and then everyone will go back to Fortnite, and it's always like that kind of mentality. And I feel like chess has that thing. Because it's the quintessential strategy game of all time. It's kind of like the basis. You have loads of other board strategy games, but chess will always be the one that everyone knows. So it's kind of like, of course, it'll have a bit of audience, and I think that's a challenge for a newer, like, gaming is evolving at such a rapid pace because technology is evolving at such a rapid pace. It's really hard to know, like what you're saying is like, maybe we have gone too far towards battle and gameplay matters. We need to go back towards systems.
I think you bring up an interesting question, which is how does someone discover a game and decide to play it? Which is I think a very different and interesting rabbit hole to go down. Like, how do you get someone to want to play your game? And there, you could definitely make an argument that graphics matter a lot. Although, I'll point out that a lot of mobile games these days have ads that are completely unrelated to what the game is. And all you need to do is get someone to say, that looks cool, and they'll download it. And it doesn't even need to be the game. The game could be completely different from your ad. And like, look, I'm not advocating for that, but I will point out this is such an interesting topic, and maybe step into this for just a second.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the reason you can legally make an ad that is completely unrelated to gameplay content is that in a free-to-play game, you didn't have to pay any money.
You didn't buy anything. Yeah.
So your damages there are like your time, but like you can't sue someone over having spent your time to play a free-to-play game, only to realize that it wasn't what was in the ad.
This is kind of a little bit of a shift, but it's a really interesting topic, so it's worth like chatting about, because I think that the kind of like user acquisition, players actually getting involved with these games, that's evolving quite a bit. The shift has now come away from these fake ads, and there's a lot of like now there's the counterculture of like, oh, this is not a fake ad. Look how cool. Look how much this is. What it is like a sneaky onboarding into latent demand. So if you picture what what's that game? I'm blanking on it's an ice game that I'm sure you've seen a freaking 100 times. Mobile ad.
Whiteout Survival?
There you go. That's the one. Okay, so their strategy was actually, let's actually make this the actual gameplay briefly. You come in and we're going to onboard you with what our system is in our social casino, call it. We're going to onboard you with, like, you're going to walk around and do this stuff, and it is really simple. But then we're going to say, here's this one little system, and like 5 systems in, you're in a 4X. You're in literally a whole different genre, right? But
Yeah,
you're kind of like, I don't mind this. This is cool. Let me keep trying it. So it's like
foot in the door.
tricky.
Just getting your foot in the door.
Just get the foot in the door.
Like, you're on board for the rest of it potentially, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think it is such an interesting question to explore. What gets someone to try a game? And I know, I get these ads all the time because I'm in the city building war game genre, but the actor who plays Homelander, I think it's Anthony Starr, right? I'm getting so many ads for him where he's like, what's
This isn't a fake ad.
He's on one particular one,
the
isn't he?
developers actually built the game that you saw in all the ads,
He's on that one that where basically looks like you're fighting against a horde of zombies, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the gameplay.
I tried the game out, by the way. It's interesting.
See, I was going to say, be honest, you kind of want to play that game a little bit.
No, I keep.
You do, right?
I want that to be the whole game, though. I don't want all these other. I don't want these other systems. Like, just let me do 1,000 levels of that, and I'd be like, yeah, this is pretty sweet. This is fun. Like,
Okay.
make it a little make it a little faster. But then as soon as I got tricked into it, and I was like, no, I don't actually want to play. I don't want to do this. I don't want to build this city and like be defending against these. No, you lost me here. But there's many people that are going to be like, this is great. I'm in. Let me try
they
this
get
thing
into
out.
it, right? Like once you start doing it, I mean, these games, and why is that? Because as it turns out, those community elements and those collection elements pull them in, right? So like the way you get someone to try your game is really important. And then if you've got the community and collection elements, then all those people who came in to try it are actually like, I'm getting something I really wanted from this, and I didn't even know that I wanted it. And I can tell you these city building war games are almost like lifestyle replacement games, which is a weird thing to say, but they take up a huge amount of your time and energy, but you also build really deep community and connections. And like a bunch of people that, I play Rise of Kingdoms as sort of my main game on my YouTube channel. Like people have gotten married and met each other through the game, and like people meet up and play in person together. And like, it's a big deal, and it delivers to people something they really wanted and needed, but maybe didn't even know they wanted and needed. As weird as that sounds.
I think that's specifically like I used to play a lot of city building simulations. Like if you think there's like it started with Harvest Moon kind of games, and then it evolved into like We Farm and We City kind of games, and now it's like this mobile kind of game where we have these days, which is like the Lord of the Rings Rise to War. You've got Rise of Kingdoms. There's a lot of them that have like build your city, build your troops, conquer. And it's a bit of a watered down version of like the 4X simulation space game type games. And a lot of players there, they don't really, like you said, they don't really care about the battle. What they want to know is resource management and time management over their day to day. It is an escapism.
It's an increase my progression, basically.
Yeah, it's an escapism from the real world. It's like, I've got to build my city. I've got to build this. I'm communicating with others. And like you said, then the community aspect is what makes that game complete, because it is, you forge your alliances and then you start having inter-alliance war. Do you remember, slightly off topic, EVE Online? Kind of a very similar thing. The amount, like when you get into the absolute big alliances and you go into nullsec, there is no gameplay because the server simply cannot handle the volume of space lasers going around. So they called it Blob Wars, but people were addicted to the economy of that game. You had like literally subcultures of economies of like, my job in this universe is to haul crap for an alliance going through nullsec, and they would literally contract themselves out. Now the gameplay is fly from point A to B. They're not really watching that. They're just doing it and simulating and mining. But it's a huge mass market. It was one of the most I would say it's the only successful gaming economy that's ever been created that actually has its own real world economy transactions, where they actually had like highs and lows, and you had like buy low, sell high, and you actually had market manipulations. And then of course, when we have a blob war and $100 million gets wiped out of the space of Earth. But exactly what you're saying, right? When you get up to those high levels, what is tying all that together? It is the inter-democratic kind of wars that are happening between two different sets of alliances. And those you see a lot in those types of games. Like when I was playing Rise to War, it was very much like the leaders were having little behind the scenes conversations about, should we align with these people?
Oh
and
my
we're gonna
God.
stab in the back, It's fun.
Always
the
stab
amount
in
of
the back.
backstabbing.
Always.
Okay, so I know a lot about city building war games. I didn't know you played Lord of the Rings Rise to War. I covered that on my second channel for quite a while. But yeah, I think what makes those games compelling is everything besides the gameplay, right? Like, even though you'd think because there's so much money at stake, the gameplay would matter more.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't even matter that like you're lagging out or you can't even control your units. And it's like,
whatever.
You spent all this money and put in all this time and put in all this energy, and you can't even control the things in the battle. It's just like, well, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. I guess it's just that like,
it's kind of a relief though. You don't want to worry about it, right?
You
I don't want
be like,
the skill.
okay, I pushed my chips in. And this is why, talking about this, that's what it sounded like to me whenever you described it, because I haven't played these games. It just sounded like, oh, I'm all in. Let me go ahead. Like, let's go. Flip the card. Is this happening? What's happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's transactional as well, right? So I'm thinking like for the average player, we've got busy lives. We know we're jumping between topic and task and different things, different problems, different solutions. And that's going to be the same for a 9-to-5 worker. So what they want to be able to do is log on and go, hey, I can send off my troops, right? My alliance has said we're going to attack this point. I'll send them off there. When I get home, then we'll see the status, or I can send off. This is why there's a lot of AFK features in a lot of these games these days, AFK journey. Like it appeals to people that they can do things to progress, but they don't have to actively do it. And I suppose that's a big aspect here of what you're saying, CHISGULE, is like, I'm not actively doing stuff in the game. I'm planning and prepping. I'm playing the game, but I'm not doing it. It doesn't demand me to sit here for 12 hours watching my fight go over and over and over and over again. I'm not doing that.
So we can talk about, so this gets really interesting. Why would somebody kind of want that in their life? Like why at all, right? If it's not the gameplay, right? Like actually what I think is that people deeply crave meaning and connection, which is really weird, but like meaning and connection. And the beauty of, I put my Raid Shadow Legends on auto and I stepped away, is that you know how you feel while that's happening, right? Like maybe you're at work and you're doing stuff you need to be doing, but you're also in the back of your mind feeling like, I can't wait to see what I got when I get back.
Yeah,
Right?
getting something.
There's
It's almost like
anticipation.
this obsession with
There's excitement.
yeah.
So like
anticipation and passive income.
it delivers something that you wanted or needed in your life, whether you're going through something extremely difficult where you're struggling to get through it, or it's just the mundane aspects of your day that you're struggling with or not interested in, or right? Like that meaning is huge, and that connection to other people is huge.
Yeah, you make mini communities, you make external friends, you make people who you can have meaningful conversations with that necessarily don't normally feel comfortable access. And this is one of the big topics in terms of, like, I've certainly had conversations before in mental health when a lot of people, we started seeing lots of legislation around like, oh, we need to get people off computers. It's like, for a lot of people, this is where they make meaningful connections and have social interaction and create their communities that give them the need that every human has, which is social. Like, not every human needs to be around everyone all the time, but at some point you need to actually have communications with other people. And for a lot of people, especially those who are not confident in public face-to-face social settings, this is great because they can work together with people like-minded, and you're more likely to be of the same interest if you're playing the same game. That's just natural, right? You're not going to find this kind of awkward thing. It's like, so what do you do? Oh, I work in, I don't know, tech. And the other person goes, yeah, I work in like an office, and now you have nothing to talk about, right? You're more likely to be in this game going, so I'm in this game, you're in this game, we have something in common now, and that sparks conversation and interaction.
You also bring people together who otherwise would have never even, gotten along or met each other or known, like people from all different walks of life that are like, oh, we have this one thing in common we can talk about. You may have somebody who they're from wildly different countries or cultures or hobbies, and all of a sudden they have something in common they can chop it up about. But I know we're kind of up against it here, approaching the end, and I know we already asked CHISGULE the question. So is there anything, CHISGULE, any hot take you wanted to get off your chest real quick here before we wrap up? Anything we didn't let you touch on?
Oh man, finishing on a hot take. I mean, I'll
You don't
just
have to,
add,
by the way.
I'll add
Yeah.
one thing
Oh,
about
he has to.
community, right? It's like I used to think I was a little bit antisocial, maybe, or like not very socially outgoing. And then I realized I just was hanging out with people who didn't share interests that I actually had as genuine, passionate interests. And so a part of what I've learned about myself playing the games that I'm playing is that, like, I'll pop into voice chat and be talking with people a lot of hours of the day.
Yeah.
And so, the hope I have for Godforge and the game that you guys are creating is that you're able to create these incredibly meaningful collection moments and community moments that genuinely change the way people live their lives and approach their day.
I love that. That's absolutely the goal. Like, I was gonna say, like, the thing I would 100% agree with after this whole discussion is that community is especially with these types of games, is absolutely the number one thing, right? Like, and I think that's, if we can nail that, and we can also get these pesky design systems, we're already making really cool assets that people can kind of check out as the collect. So yeah, I love it. I think ending on me agreeing with you is
I agree on that as well.
I'm there.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm there. Yeah.
But that's why
Well-
community is such a massive foundational pillar of Fateless. Is we totally agree with that. Yeah. But
So
Well, we agree that gameplay matters only in the right context, which is
Okay.
Paul's getting that
My-
last word in
this,
there.
this is my stump for president here with the way that this is the political answer. It's like gameplay matters, but only when it matters the most.
That's
And in
right.
what capacity does it matter? But you're right. Community, I suppose less about community, but having something that you need to talk to and debate with people of like-minded positions is where I come from with community. Someone having the ability to help someone learn or help someone gain, or someone having a problem that they can solve with a community, or having people debate different ways to do something. That is where, like, I lead a clan in Raid Shadow Legends. That is where we get a lot of success, when people in the clan find an outcome that is a positive improvement by working together. And that shared community experience is extremely valuable. And that's why people still play the games, because you don't want just to be in a member of clan. I've seen a lot of games where they have a clan system and you just sit there in the clan. There's no real engagement. They have a community there, but you can't really do anything. There's no interaction. Having those mechanisms that you can work with the people in your community to find a positive outcome that changes your experience in the game. That is, to me, the holy grail.
yeah, I mean,
gameplay.
I don't know how you design a community experience from scratch, which is what you guys are up to. But like, I imagine one of the things you think about is like, what are the things that we want our players to be talking about with each other?
Yeah.
Right. And like, how do we enable that? And I'm sure some of that is like, well, what is your build for your hero, and like, what equipment, and then
Where'd you
and
find
all
that
sort of
thing?
stuff.
Where'd you get
But
that
but it goes way
mastery?
deeper than that, right? Like, and I'm sure you've put a lot of thought into that, but it's a topic that I think could be a whole nother podcast.
And it
Oh,
will
for
be
sure.
very soon. It will be very soon. But CHISGULE, this has been great. Thanks for joining us. And we're gonna link to CHISGULE's content down below for you to check out. And also let us know your thoughts on gameplay and the different topics here at hand, and how you feel. And you can also pop into the Discord and share your thoughts on helping us design Godforge here at Fateless. So Sham, Paul, thank you, and CHISGULE, cheers. Thanks for being our guest on this one, and we will see you all soon in the next Fateless podcast episode.